Peace that surpasses all understanding. Valentine's Day, a platonic love story. Um, platonic. Um, Kind of curious, like just I've been experiencing a fair amount of coming out of old patterns of belief or programming or whatever about what it means to be a man and our perspectives and attitudes toward women. Uh, and first, I don't, it's that time of the year, where Valentine's Day is right around the corner, and I'm starting to see, you can go to the store and it's all the flowers and the candy and the cards um, I think it's important to add a platonic love story, because we have this idea about Valentine's Day um, that there's something inherently romantic and um, intimately sexual, physical. This is somebody that, man and woman, whatever the dynamic, that it's a romantic relationship. However, um, and this was a good one. This was a good story, and I was definitely compelled because it made me remember this story and the love that's expressed between friends is no less powerful or valid than romantic love. Um, but there's, I'll get right to it. Man and woman, longtime friends. They met at work. Um, she was in a relationship, long time relationship. He was coming out of a relationship. They were in, and um, she was impressed with his character, about how he was making reference. He was going through a divorce, and he was being respectful of that relationship. He was expressing himself, the pain of the divorce and whatever, but he wasn't pointing fingers. And she admired that quality, that character about him. He wasn't bad mouthing, one of the things. And he reciprocally saw her as someone who was very kind, had a gentle hand. Um, uh, this person was in healthcare, and um, the way that she treated her patients, the way that she treated her friends, he was very impressed with that. A very loving spirit, very generous. Um, and it just never seemed that the stars align, for one reason or another. He moved. Uh, she ended that relationship and moved on and got into another relationship. And anytime that either one of them were single, the other one was like in a relationship, or they had moved away, or two, it was just all these like things where the stars weren't aligning. And perhaps the stars weren't meant to align in that way. But many years pass, and um, the kind of friends that when there was uh, time to do things together as friends, it was kind of reminiscent. When Harry met Sally, and I remember there was a scene in there where, if you're single and I'm single on New Year's Eve, let's, we'll make it a practice. It'll be our thing as friends. Um, but if you're with somebody, no harm, no foul. But you don't have to be alone on New Year's Eve. And that's where the story kind of starts. And he, in this particular case, had been single for a very long time, and she um, had just ended a relationship, um, a long-term relationship, and had moved back to the area, his area, a familiar area, and through social media, he was prompted by a response to something he had put on social media. Oh, I haven't seen so and so in 6 months, and he reached out via whatever, a message, and hey, great to, hey, I didn't know you were back in the area. And it was New Year's Eve. He's like, well, if you got nothing planned, let's do something. Let's do something. It's New Year's Eve. Nobody should be alone. And the two of them, they got together, and they had a very nice, very pleasant, very, very platonic evening, but very nice. Out to dinner, champagne, and while they were in the restaurant, there was two parts. There was the restaurant and like the formal dining room, and then there was like very posh, very nice, um, but a smaller dining room that was attached to a pub, and they were having dinner in there. And in the dining room, it was all classical music and very formal. You didn't go in the dining room unless you were wearing a suit and tie. It was like I'm sure many of us can relate, depending. Anyway, I digress. But they were both fans of Van Morrison, interestingly, and they're sitting down to have their dinner, and a Van Morrison song came on. These Are the Days, um, in the dining room that they were sitting in, and his head cocked, and she looked at him. Oh, that's kind of cool. But this was a restaurant. This wasn't a bar. They didn't have a dance floor, and on a whim, he's just like stood up, grabbed her hand, and in the middle of the living room, they danced to Van Morrison. Platonic, loving relationship. Anyway, it started on that New Year's Eve. He went home and slept in his bed. She went home and slept in her bed. They had a wonderful hug at the end of the night, brought in the new year, kiss on the cheek, perfect hug. And within very short time, they between New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, and Valentine's Day, they began to spend a bit more time together. Going to the movies, hanging out, whatever. Walk on the beach during a storm. And then Valentine's Day was rapidly approaching, and let's do something. Guy had an idea. Let's do something. You're single, I'm single. Valentine's Day is coming up. When's the last time you went out to dinner and had a night, made a night of it? Let's do this. So he finds a very posh restaurant. One of those places where you go for an experience rather than to have dinner. Um, you might go into the lounge. It had a lounge, not a bar. It had a dining room, not tables. Every table perfectly appointed. The lounge had couches and chairs and little nooks where, beautiful, beautiful place. And prior to dinner, it's going to be a very short story, but I think you'll appreciate this. Platonic love. Platonic love for a friend, opposite sex, but equally as passionate. They go to the restaurant, horribly, horribly snowy night. Maybe we should cancel our reservation. No fucking way. I've been waiting for this. They've both been waiting for this. A night out. And horribly snowy night. The restaurant was only about a mile away. They get to the restaurant. They go and they sit in the bar. She was frantic. He arrived early and she wasn't quite ready yet. And she had had a very trying and stressful day at work. And equally enthusiastic, as stressful as her day was, very much looking forward to the night out. And frantically trying to get herself together, dress, hair, makeup, shoes, whatever. And waiting, the male friend, waiting patiently in the kitchen. And no, do your thing, man. We'll get there when we get there. They'll hold our reservation. There's 2 feet of snow on the ground. We'll be there. And while she was getting ready, he gets on the phone. Yeah, we're still coming. We're going to be there. You're still open? Yep, we're still open. It was, they had rooms. It was like a bed and breakfast, but very posh. So they finally make it to the restaurant. And he's making every effort to put her at ease. She's had a rough day. She wants to put her feet up, relax, enjoy an evening. And they sit at the bar, place their orders, and she continues to talk about her day and why and how it was so stressful, and expressing herself. And out of the corner of her eye, the bartender behind the bar had been restocking the bar. There was these refrigerators underneath the back bar with glass doors on them, and clear glass so that you could see the product. And as she was serving people, there was a cooler with the beer bottles in it, and the door slammed and it knocked a couple of the bottles over. And out of the corner of her eye, the female friend in this story, out of the corner of her eye, she saw the bottles fall. And in the course of the conversation, her gaze kept getting distracted by the bottles that had turned over. And it's quite interesting. Quite an interesting story. But the time and the friendship and the intimacy that they had shared platonically, he knew that she had a low-grade case of O.C.D. going on. And those 2 or 3 beer bottles that had fallen over when the door slammed had captured her gaze and captured her attention, and she was struggling to be present in that moment. She had to step away to use the ladies' room. The gentleman in this story, as she stepped away, knowing full well that there was, as she was somewhat preoccupied in that moment with the stress of her day, and now these beer bottles that had tipped over and triggered her O.C.D., she stepped away to use the ladies' room. And to this, because he knew her so well, he called the bartender over, reached into his pocket and pulled out a few dollars, a tip, slid it across the bar to her, and explained to the bartender that he had O.C.D. and that he was doing his best to pay attention to his date. And would the bartender mind, after offering her a tip, that would you please stand the bottles back up? She looked down at the money, grabbed the tip. Absolutely. No problem. I understand. The female friend came back from the bathroom. She sat down and immediately looked behind the bar. She sighed, looked over at her friend, her male friend, and right into a conversation. Whatever distraction she had felt that she couldn't focus, the distraction had been removed, and she was free to be herself. The bartender, shortly thereafter, came to the couple and said, "Your table's ready." She began to pick up the drinks and put them on the tray to deliver them to the dining table. And in a moment, when the female friend stood up and turned to walk toward the dining room, the gentleman was off, sliding another tip for the drink delivery. And the female bartender slid her hand across the bar with a piece of paper, a napkin, and he acknowledged it, picked it up. "Thank you," and she nodded. And as he was turning to join his female friend toward the dining room, the bartender simply said, "I know what you did." Put the paper in his pocket. They went and they had a lovely dinner. Lovely dinner. Posh dinner. Anyway, wonderful evening. Champagne, strawberries, everything and anything that you could possibly imagine that a romantic couple would participate in, minus the sex. But everything else about that evening, sky's the limit, man. Sky's the limit. Let's have fun. Let's enjoy this. Let's enjoy each other's company. Afterward, the guy reaches into his pocket, and sure enough, the bartender had offered her name and her phone number. And as they were exiting the restaurant, there was one of those little smoking cans, and crumpled up the paper and threw it in there. And maybe that was ignorant on his part, but anyway, a little Valentine story where you can love anybody. I can, male, female. It's the exchange. It's the intimacy. It's the caring. It's the listening. It's the reciprocity in a relationship. It's not one person putting in 100%. It's a dance. It's a dance, and we complement one another. Whether it's a romantic relationship, a family member, a male or female friend, and we have the other person's best interest at heart. Quite simply, that's it. We have their best interest, not our best interest, their best interest. We have to listen. We have to listen. And with that, there was and I can't remember where I heard it, where I read it, but it's something that's lingered with me over the years. And I want to do this justice because it's fucking beautiful. There's so much distortion about how men are perceived by women, and so much distortion about how a man might approach something like Valentine's Day with his wife. "Oh, it's a sure thing. I can't screw this up. It's the one day a year where I know I'm going to get lucky." A huge distortion. But when we care enough about our friends and our romantic encounters and the people in our lives, we study them. We pay attention to their likes, their dislikes, their feelings, their emotions. We pay attention, or we don't. In this particular case, this gentleman was paying attention. And this poem Um, and I'll leave it at this poem. And the only reason I'm pausing is because I want to say it right, because it's profound. Now, this poem is a romantic poem, but it could be applied to a platonic relationship easily. He held her close like a seashell to his ear and listened to the tides of her heart. That's it. How often do we really listen? Male, female, young, old. Yep. And he held her close like a seashell to his ear and listened to the tides of her heart. Beautiful poem. And we can apply that. We can apply that to any relationship that we're in. But that's my 2 cents about Valentine's Day. If you're with somebody, have a wonderful time. Have a wonderful time. Listen and learn. Do something for them, not, when we have somebody else's best interest at heart. Um, and if you're alone, fall in love with yourself and take yourself out for Valentine's Day. I've taken myself out for meals and concerts and you name it, man. Fall in love with your life. Treat yourself like you would treat a lover, or a friend. Peace. Surpasses all understanding. Have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful Valentine's Day. And peace that surpasses all understanding. I'm out. Later.